Hey there, my name is Heather Feather. I am the owner of Rare Bird Medicine, and today's topic is the path to manhood. I think some people may look at this video and think, like, what is this lady? How could you know about the path to manhood? I've said many times, I'm not a YOLOer. It's possible if you're a man right now, I've lived many more lifetimes than you as a man. I'm not a YOLOer, and I don't have a dissociation from the information we glean. I think not only is my DNA and my RNA and my physical body written with the knowledge and wisdom of my ancestors, but I think there is a quantum light of awareness that transcends space and time that we carry in the paradigm, which is why so many can just be like really awakened in a knowing. So when I'm talking, when I'm talking about the path to manhood, manhood to me is where we move through the coming of age. We move out of infancy, we move out of adolescence, and we move into adulthood and wisdom stages. So what does it mean to be in the adulthood and wisdom stages as a man, as the masculine principle, as the divine masculine? And I try to talk often about developing the whole self. And to me, developing the whole self is physical, mental, emotional, spiritual. A lot of people love to throw out the spiritual quadrant. Some really do have investment in that. So a lot of people don't have investment in the emotional quadrant of being. Some people aren't interested in any of the beings but physical. They're just like, I'm only a physical being. I only think about my body and what things look like. I'm addicted to form. But it's also developing the whole self is developing the masculine and feminine principle. There are many native traditions that would talk about two spirits, saying that the most evolved in their culture would be somebody that would essentially come in with two spirits, an equal parts masculine and feminine principle. I've always identified as a two-spirit. I've always been mislabeled as overly masculine. I mean, even like my short hair, like that's masculine. I've been called sir a bunch, and it is not hair that makes somebody masculine or feminine. It's not the way we adorn our bodies. So what is masculine principle typically of the quadrants of being, because they are active, because they move forward, are the mind, the ability to strategize, the ability to problem solve, and the spirit. And we talked about this on the path to the Father. But as somebody that's pansexual, I call it genitalia blind. Where are your genitals? But what that means to me is I'm not really attached to what someone's genitals are. I think that you can attain sexual pleasure from anyone that's invested in that. I find it to be more palpable and present when there's emotional connection present, because I'm looking to develop the whole self, which means I'm more fulfilled in meeting the whole self and myself and another. But this masculine principle of the ability to think, the ability to solve, and the ability to be connected to one's spirit, what does it mean when those are in adulthood, when they're in adulthood or wisdom? It means that we are able to clearly articulate our truth. So, for example, I've said before, I'm a monogamous, long-term woman. I am only interested in being with ultimately a mate that is a single person that is available, that also is a monogamous long-termer, that also cares about the developed whole self. And I had a man that I briefly dated when I moved to New Mexico. He's an amazing man. He's an arts dealer for Native Americans. He knows the coolest people, in my opinion, because those are some of the coolest, wisest people. And he is not monogamous. And I asked that question a little late, because my masculine, my manhood wasn't developed enough for me to recognize, oh, this is a thing with me, and it's important to me, and it's part of my core value system. So I need to ask early on, if I'm going to date someone, is this what you are? If not, that's okay. We don't have to be a match. That's okay. We're just not a match. We're a better match for friendship or nothing or whatever. But I asked it on like the fifth date. We had gone on several dates, and I really started to like this guy. And on the fifth date, he was like, oh no, I see this woman. And I was like, oh, interesting. Okay. Duly noted. And what's fun, I was thinking about how he was showing me his manhood. That sounds gross. But he was basically showing me his manhood because he came back into my life a year or 2 years later or whatever. We maintained friendship, But he came back in again and he was like, hey, do you have any interest in, having sexual engagement? And he was clear with me. He was clear with me, and this is being clear before we engage the action, the actionable, before we engage in the activity. Are we clear in the level of mind that we're on the same page? And he was clear that he's like, I'm still not monogamous. Thank you. Thank you for your clarity. Thank you for your communication. Thank you for, your ability to clearly articulate what's true for you. I reflect on that sometimes, and I appreciate his maturation, his ability to be mature enough to tell me his truth. He didn't just try to get a piece. He just was like, hey, if this is fun for you in this way, it's fun for me in that way. If we're on the same page, then let's engage. Has anything changed for you? And I thought it was really mature too, to come back in and be like, like, anything changed? It's, I don't know. He's being honest with himself, authentic and true about who he is. And so there's a component of being able to clearly articulate and clearly communicate one's needs, one's intentions, one's strategy, one's plan, all of that is masculine principle. So when we come into adulthood and into wisdom, we become very clear in being able to articulate our intentions. A male bird in nature is not being unclear about its intentions. It's like, it's doing like a crazy dance, and it's like, look, I got all these shiny things in the nest. You know what I mean? It is flashing literally. That is kind of like, we can see it in Mother Nature, how there's like very clear intent being expressed. And one of the ways we can remain in adolescence with manhood is not about your haircut. It's not about your penis. It's not about your car. It comes down to like your ability to be, part of being grown is being thoughtful. It's being considerate. It's being able to walk a mile in another person's shoes. So when we don't know the self and we're not able to articulate and we're not able to be clear about what our intentions are or what we seek when we don't even know, it can cause us to remain in a state of adolescence. And I've met many men in their 40s. I'm 47, so usually when I'm talking to a dude, or I speak to people of all ages, but when I'm talking to a dude that I'm romantically considering or interested in, they're my age range, because that's appealing to me, because we have understanding from walking the earth, enough times here. And as I seek a mature individual, specifically when I'm seeking men for dating, I am noticing a lot of adolescence and understanding. So some examples are, in the past couple of years, I dated a man that was in a very toxic relationship with a woman. She had problems being obsessive with herself, and it caused him to become kind of obsessive with her. But he had no awareness as he was dating me that every dinner we went to, every interaction we had was conversation about her. So I had to be the person in the relationship, even though I really enjoyed dating him and wanted to date him, to say, I don't think we should date, because it sounds to me like what you need is space and time to process your last relationship, because I don't want to be a ghost at dinner with a man. I'm happy to talk about your past relationships, but if every time we go to dinner, I'm going to talk about your last relationship, are you even aware that I'm there? And so I'm not interested in being a ghost at dinner. And there's a certain adolescence in not understanding how we are being in the world with others, because the masculine principle is an active dynamic. So how are you being? Are you aware of your beingness? When we come into maturation, we come into adulthood, and we come into wisdom, we become aware that we are all influencers. Everybody is influencing life with every breath. Everything you're doing is influencing life. It shakes the web is connected. It's not disconnected. So, I've had men come in and they just present me with a picture, like of their face or of their penis or of their balls. And it's like little kids are like, picture, colors, picture, you know what I mean? And it's like, yeah, but no words, literally like, here's a picture of my penis. And then like many weeks later, here's a picture of my face. No words. So part of coming into manhood and being an adult and being in adulthood and wisdom is understanding that conversation and mental stimulation and emotional stimulation, and for some spiritual stimulation as well as physical stimulation, is needed. A person needs all their aspects of being to be stimulated. So a lot of men, I've noticed, watch so much porn that they think that that they can just bust out their genitals and a woman's going to be like, "Oh my God, prize of prizes," And it's not that if you're male identified, that your genitals aren't beautiful. It has nothing to do with that. It's just that maturation, the difference between a baby and a grown person is a grown person can have an entire conversation. They're able to express how they feel, what they think. So they're not saying nothing and then expecting reward. It's like life is not a porno, and I'm not vilifying the porn industry or any of that. I'm just saying that when you fill yourself with a lot of pornography instead of using your imagination for your sexual stimulation, it does lower testosterone. And it also, if you fill, content in, character out, if you fill yourself with enough of that, you're going to start to think on an unconscious level that the world is that way and that women are just like waiting around for the plumber or pizza guy to come by or whatever the porn's about, And I'm not. I'm able to fulfill myself sexually. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not. It's not that I don't want that. I'm very sexual. I have a lot of Scorpio in my chart. I'm very sexual. But there are other stimulations that are needed for intimacy to be present for me, under which I would want to take my clothes off and be sexual with someone. And so a mature individual understands that in order for me to engage with someone romantically, I would want to stimulate their mind. I would want to stimulate their heart. I would want them to feel safe in my presence, right? And so that can be a maturation. Another one is to be aware of others, to be outward focused. Narcissism's pretty rampant, not narcissistic personality disorder, which is less than 5% of the population, but narcissism in general is rampant because we're like given these devices to constantly look at ourselves, which is good, but we don't just need to look at our forms, we need to actually look at ourselves, right? And so there can be a component too. There's been many men that I've been with, they constantly want me, they're like beating their own chest and they constantly want me to praise them. Well, that's not a problem. I love to adore and I have a lot of love to offer. But if I'm not here to just like stoke your ego, right? So when we come into adulthood and wisdom, we are able to know our own value. We don't need to obtain it from someone else. And so I'm speaking to all gender identifications. I'm talking about how's your manhood doing? How's your manhood doing? You know what I mean? How are you doing with being in adulthood and wisdom around your masculine principle? Not just how's your masculine principle doing, but how is the adulthood and wisdom of it? There's a local coffee shop I like here. They have a gentleman's motorcycle ride that they do. And it's cool. It's so cool to me to come to a new city and see people that are a group of individuals that identify with being gentlemanly. And so that concept, as a general rule, is tied to consideration. It's tied to compassionate acts. It's tied to politeness. And what a grace, what a grace to have awareness, what adulthood, what maturity. And you can become part of that. Go to Rust is Gold in Albuquerque, New Mexico. If you ride a motorcycle or if you consider yourself a gentleman and want to be a part of that layer of consciousness. But that word in and of itself has to do with being conscious of another. That's really it's respectful, considerate, So today I just wanted to talk to you about manhood. How's your manhood going, irrespective of your genitals? How are you doing with strategizing, planning, thinking, communicating, expressing, being honest, being forthright, being considerate and aware of your influence, and taking actions that are aligned with being attentive to the entire paradigm? How's that going? We have Egyptian coming up in August, starting August 9th. There's more information at rarebirdmedicine.com. You can click on the classes link, and you can always subscribe to Rare Bird Medicine on YouTube. Like and comment there. I love to hear your thoughts. I'm on.